that's it. We are live on the internet. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Eric. How about yourself?
I'm doing really great, Rick. So I'm really excited to have you on. Real quick, Rick Kauffman is the founder of the Kels Group and the Drowning Warriors. And this organization was inspired by the fatal drowning of his daughter 25 years ago today. Today is the 25th anniversary of Rick's daughter, Kelsey, passing away in a public pool, 8 feet away from a lifeguard while under the supervision of a babysitter. And it's just a terrible story. And one of the longest, probably one of the oldest, I would say, I've heard, most, people I've talked to who have lost someone have been more recent. So I think that's really interesting. And I think it's really special that you chose the 25th anniversary to talk to us today. So I really appreciate that.
No, well, I appreciate you, Eric, and all that you do with Lifesaver Pool Fence and everything I've learned about you recently and your company and what you guys stand for, not only the education and what you put out, the wealth of information and meeting a lot of, I've met some of your other dealers and their inspiration and what they do. And so I really appreciate everything that you do in the drowning prevention and water safety space, and especially with your podcast here, because it's the people that you have a wealth of background experience and everything that they can bring to the table, and then using the medium of the internet, because 25 years ago, if you remember, dial up and America Online, and was really expensive, and so the internet was not, it was just getting started. And so our outreach 25 years ago was pretty much just in our own backyard and local community. And but my daughter's accident didn't make the national headlines and news. We got cards, letters, and coverage from all over the country. But yeah, the internet and with what you're doing just makes a completely different impact in allowing you and all the other organizations out there to reach people that they probably otherwise wouldn't. So
was there anything that I missed or that you wanted to cover in the story of how it happened 25 years ago?
No, you really touched on everything. I just want to say, I wrote a blog post this morning. I went out I wrote it yesterday, but it went out this morning. But I just want to bring attention that, it's not about, 25 years later, it's not really about me or my daughter's story, that the message that I try to get out. But I mean, the story is important because I talk a lot about, who's your child with, or who's watching your child. And in my case, it was a babysitter. And I had a pool. I was a father of 2 children. One 8, and then Kelsey was 3. And we had an in-ground pool. And as a father at that time and as a family, we thought we did everything right. We thought we did everything just as we should. I remember speaking to my daughter. My oldest daughter was in swim lessons, and the babysitter was taking her to the swim lessons during the summer at our local pool. And, of course, our younger daughter was 3. She went the summer before. She had attended some of the swim lessons, and we had checked with the swim instructors there with the city and everything. At that time we didn't have a YMCA in our community or anything like that, so that was the only place that you could go, at least locally, for any type of swim lessons that we were aware of. And I remember the conversation as we wanted to check to see if we can have lessons, and they told us no, she was too young. And from what I remember, they told us that she'd have to come back, at the age of 5. And we didn't know any better. So, we just went to...
I mean, to your credit, the American Academy of Pediatrics at the time used to tell people that 5 was the age to enroll kids in swim lessons. And, even back in 1987, 89, we used to rally against that because we knew that drowning is the number 1, at the time, number 2, unintentional cause of death for kids under 5. So most kids who drown have already drowned by the time they reach 5 years old. So to tell people to wait until 5, I always thought was was probably catastrophic. I mean, how many people like yourself got that advice and followed it, and it turned out poorly,
Right. Well, we're just an average parent. I mean, just the average Joe that walks down the street, goes into Walmart. Yeah. And so we look at these people that run swim schools and teach things, and they tell us this. And so we look at them as experts. And so why should I question what they tell me? And in hindsight now, as a parent, and when, looking for somebody to teach, whether or not it's our public school system or wherever your children go, in other words, who's your child with? Who's watching your child? What are they teaching them? And what? And the thing about it is what we found is, and that I find since then, when I've asked that, usually if you ask those questions a little bit further, you'll find that these people will tell you that they don't believe that a child should start to swim for whatever reason, like with the infant swim rescue and resource, starting as early as 6 months. If I would have known that, and they were around in 1993, I had never heard of them. And so from that standpoint, if my daughter would have had that, ability to be able to do that, she would, I believe that she would be here today. And so them, as an expert or as people like that, if they were aware of that, being out there, even if they don't want to teach that or they don't, want to take children that low or that young, they should, I think, as professionals, they should do everything a professional should do, is give the parent the necessary information. If somebody wants to go out and have that education, they should at least supply them the information. Leave it up to the parent to determine where to go, who to pick and choose to do, go from there. But that was never given to us. Now, maybe it might have been because they were totally unaware of it. I don't know, what was, what their reasoning was. But yeah, that's one of the things I talk about a lot is, just as a parent, ask questions. And if you hear some, there's, the thing about it is there's no wrong question to ask these people. There's only wrong answers. And if you don't agree with their answer, with the internet to what it is today, do your research, do your due diligence, go out there and find. And that's a lot about what our messaging and what we talk about is because so what is it? Safe Kids Coalition says, 50% of the parents, I believe, don't concern themselves. They either don't care or don't concern themselves or don't believe that, drowning will occur. And so a lot of this is, I go back 25 years ago before today. If I was to sit down with you, Eric, and I had an in-ground pool, and we had a chain link fence back in 1993, was a top of the line chain link fence. And, we had two gates, and neither one of them had a lock on them. We never put a lock on our gate. And so people could come and go. They weren't self-closing, self-latching. The fencing company never explained any of that stuff. And those gates were around then. And just, not, oops, I think my microphone might have just kicked in here. I don't know if you can you still hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. And I just want to make sure, because it just, for some reason, my microphone just kind of switched out on me here. So okay, good. And so, so even though these were fencing companies, they never explained to me when we put in that new fence around our pool. And I was not aware of anything called, barriers, layers of protection. Had no clue whatsoever. We were concerned about drowning, and I was a good father. And I believe part of the problem is if you sat down with me 25 years ago to talk to me about putting in, one of your fences, I think part of the problem with parents today is they don't believe it's going to happen. So in other words, we all have opinions on how people parent, but we don't want anybody to tell us what we should do to protect our children. I think that's how I might have felt 25 years ago, because I was a good father. I was always there with my child, but she always wore those water wings, those floaties, the blow up ones that, you can find every place today. And so when she told them, they weren't allowed, and never having any clue of a false sense of security that might have gave her. I mean, we learned so much about her accident 25 years ago. The only answer we don't have is how she wound up in the pool. We don't know. Did she jump in, push it, get pushed? Did somebody throw her? How she got from, we know how she got from the kiddie pool area to the big pool and what all transpired, but how she actually got from the side of the pool into the water, have no clue what happened there. And that'll be one that I guess after I'm dead and gone, she can tell me exactly how it happened. That'll be when I'll find out.
How old was she?
She was 3 years old. She was actually 2 weeks before her fourth birthday. Her birthday is July 3rd, when she would have been 4. And and we had a foundation 25 years ago at the time. We realized there was many mistakes made in the CPR from what we had found out through the paramedics, the hospitals, Children's Hospital. But again, at least CPR was performed. So I don't want anybody to take something away from that as a negative, because there was a lot of things that were done right, but at the same time there was in other words, I guess I look at it this way. They always say, well, if the moon and stars align right, then everything's fine. Well, in this case, the moon and stars aligned against us in that day, and it was just one little mistake on top of a mistake on top of a mistake, all combined together to really cause this this accident and the outcome that came about 25 years ago. So CPR was a real big part of what we did after that, providing people with CPR and the lessons and free training, of which then what I learned was CPR, and then also learning CPR. I had an opportunity in 2013 actually to perform CPR on my wife when she had a horse riding accident and basically was blue and broke 11 ribs, punctured lung, scapula, 2 brain hemorrhages, broke her back in 7 places. And so I performed CPR, and she's here today. So from that standpoint, the importance of CPR, you never know when you might need it. Could be in a drowning, could be something else. But what we know the thing about it is my daughter's accident 25 years ago. If that didn't happen, I probably I wouldn't have known CPR in 2013, most likely. And so that's just how important it is to learn these things, whether or not you believe an accident is going to happen or not, but just to know it, but not wait for something to happen before you take action to try to change things or make a difference.
So Kels was with a babysitter, you said, right? How old was the babysitter?
I don't really recall. I think she was probably in her 20s. She was when she started watching our children. She was married, but she had no children. And then eventually, shortly after, I believe Kelsey had drowned, she started. She had a family of her own. Not a lot of contact with her. We did. I owned a business in town for about 20 plus years. I did make connections. They did come into my place of business, my storefront and everything. And, I forgave her. She broke down, fell on the ground crying. I can't imagine the pain, and I hold no ill will against her. It was an accident. There was mistakes made. And my goal, and I'm looking at possibly reaching out to her as we move forward with some of the things that we're doing. And we're focusing a lot on babysitters and trying to provide training to babysitters around water safety. My wife and I are licensed foster parents, and we've had as many as 6 foster children in our home. The one thing that when we go through foster care and they're, so essentially we're a babysitter, I guess you could say, that I find very, very ironic, because they're really in your face about safety, about, everything about child safety around the house. But when it comes to a swimming pool, the only thing they want to make sure is that you have a fence, so that, in other words, you comply with the local zoning laws or whatever that is. Other than that, they provide no training whatsoever when it comes to pool safety. And here they are worried about, they provide us with so much other safety training. We have to know CPR, we have to know first aid, we have to know everything, and all the, hotlines, and keep our medication locked up. Everything that we have to keep, away from these children to keep them from, to keep them safe. But then if I had a pool in my backyard, they don't even come and inspect that. They don't really seem to care that much. And that, I find that, to be very odd, from that standpoint. So we're talking with our organization that we foster through and looking at maybe start providing some training, things like that about water safety, and putting some emphasis on, if you feel it's just as important to keep your drugs locked up, we can't keep our medicine. And same thing with like just the average everyday Tylenol or cough medicine or, Halls, cough drops. We have to keep those out of reach of these children. And so from that standpoint, but I can give complete access to a toddler, to a swimming pool, and you're not concerned about door locks, alarms. I mean, we have door locks, we have door alarms, not because we have a pool, but because they tell us we've had autistic children. These kids can get themselves out of a safe. And we have infant safe door locks that I can't even open. And we've had autistic children, 10, 12, 13 years old in here that can just get themselves out of that door just like it was, opening up a can of peanut butter or something. And I can't even, get myself into the door. So that's, I find that's very in today's society with what we know about, the drowning being the leading cause of accidental death of children between ages of 1 to 4, and the second for, for children, up to, 15 years or under 15. There's not that whole lot of concern. And I find that to be disturbing. 25 years later after my daughter's accident. And, we had, like I said earlier, we had our own foundation. We did a lot of work. We provided things for volunteer emergency squads, such as PD boards, because we live in a rural community. I live out on a farm. And if I call the emergency squad, I get a bunch of guys in pickup trucks that show up here. And so from that standpoint, and then eventually a squad will show up. And the likelihood that we found out 25 years ago, the likelihood that an emergency squad would show up with the, one size for adults, one size fits all. But when it comes to children, you need, separate PD paddles, PD boards, trach tubes, all these things. And a lot of times the volunteer squads didn't have those. So we provided tens of thousands of dollars to the area squads to provide for those. But, we ran that foundation for about 8 years, and then we shut it down following the breakup of my marriage and the divorce. But then for about 15 years, I wandered. I reinvented myself many times and just was searching for something. And then about 3 years ago, I started looking back into the drowning. I felt like I was being called to come back to this space and take, what happened 25 years ago. And then I started doing some research on the numbers. And in 1993, from what I remember, the numbers were like 4,300 drownings in the United States and over 400,000 worldwide. And what is it today, or at least according to the most recent numbers, is around 3,700, drownings, in the United States, and around 372 or just over 370,000 worldwide. So in my opinion, the needle hasn't moved a whole lot in 25 years. And so that was rather disturbing to me.
And even despite those numbers, that foster care system you talked about, that's just a symptom of the way culture underappreciates the threat of drowning, right? We know the other things to be concerned about, but it's not the foster system's fault. The foster system is just living in, a nation that doesn't really fully appreciate, how serious a threat drowning is.
Exactly. And I think that's, what really I felt like what was calling me back. And then about a little over 3-4 years ago, I started, and, I came across the NDPA, the National Drowning Prevention Alliance, started looking at them, following some of their information, wanted to go to their first educational conference several years ago. But I talked myself out of it. And the reason why I talked myself out of it, because my daughter drowned in 1993. And I felt like what, people might be saying, well, I've actually had people, just to tell you, people in my own family, because of what I'm doing, they tell me to get over it. It's been a long time ago that what I'm doing is unhealthy. But I just ignore it because they don't understand. They've not walked in my shoes, and I believe what I'm doing is extremely healthy because I'm going on with my life, but at the same time, I'm doing something positive, trying to bring something positive out of something that's so negative. And then for about 15 years after we stopped our foundation, I really didn't do anything. I worked a lot in the grief space and talking with families and parents who lost children. Told my story to, many, many people. I've been interviewed on the BBC radio. I've been, with our local TV stations. I've been with some national TV stations. And so, so from that standpoint, about grief and about things, I've been able to tell my story and my daughter's story. And so, but then I felt like I was being called back to this space. And so, that's when I started looking at the NDPA, many other foundations and organizations. And because of the internet, what the internet is able to bring to that is just, opened my eyes to just how big the problem was. Because in 1993, I knew children drowned and I could read the numbers national, but, to be able to share the stories, it just wasn't there. If you didn't hear about it as much, and as we go on, we hear about it a lot more. And I think some of it's kind of like my heightened awareness right now, because it's like when you go buy a new car. You buy one and you think, hey, I got the only color, and then you go down the road and it's like you see. Everybody has this car and that color, and you thought you was being really original. So, I think at one point in time, we kind of go through life with blinders because we're not really aware of it. So we don't notice it as much. And then all of a sudden, once we become aware of something, we see it, we start seeing it and noticing a whole lot more. And so I believe the messaging here is what's really, really important to, find some type of messaging, something that will begin to resonate with those 50% of the people that really don't care or aren't concerned about it, who are like me, because I thought I was a good father. And, if you tried to sell me a pool fence, I could tell you, I could probably give you, 50 million objections why I shouldn't really have one, because I'm a good father. I'm always there. Why should I spend the money to do this? All I have to do is comply with the bare minimums of what the law and the zoning and things like that in Ohio and my local community tell me I have to do. And then that's all I have to do. And there was an article I'm sure you get Google alerts, right, Eric? You get all the Google alerts and everything. I have one set up for Ohio, and there's actually a brand new pool was scheduled to open in Ohio on Memorial Day. They have like 11 lifeguards. It's a city, it's a municipality pool, and it's like a $7.5 million pool complex. Well, a state inspector. Well, evidently they had in these plans, and part of their main gate going into these plans, the plans did not call for a self-closing, self-latching gate. And and then prior to the grand opening, a state inspector came in and shut them down because they didn't have the gate. And the person with the city municipality said, well, nobody, through all our plans and everybody approved our plans, nobody brought this to our attention. And then he made the comment, he said, but most city pools and public pools like this, the main gate to the pool area does not have a self-closing, self-latching gate because it's a manned gate. There's a person there. Going back 25 years, my daughter was put into a kiddie pool, which did not have a self-closing, self-latching gate. The gate was left open. And so she was able to go from the kiddie pool area, which had a fencing. I mean, the pool was inside the fence area with the large pool, but it was fenced in to be separate, but the gate was always left open, and nor did it have a self-closing, self-latching gate. And so here it is 25 years later, and people who are still in charge of our children at pools like this still don't get it, that, you have a manned gate or somebody watching a gate. If we're all parents, we know how fast we can turn our back and be distracted for a split second, and bam, here comes a little toddler you don't even see them walk by you, and the next thing you know, you've just given them complete access because you have a manned gate, and which is open to human error. We all make mistakes. We don't intend them to happen, but we make mistakes, and that I find that very ironic. 25 years later, some of the mentality of these people that run these facilities are still the same way. And actually, I'm going to share that post here today because I find that 25 years later with a 7.5 million or whatever budget to build a brand new pool. So I want to thank that state inspector for shutting them down and forcing them to put in the proper gate, even if it was missed on the plans. That's why they do inspections, because people miss things.
100%. And you're so right. Anything that's left to human error, I think is too big of a risk. If we can, I always say that there's no way to 100% drown-proof a pool or a child, and that the more layers of protection you put in place, the closer to a fail-safe system you get. So, the manned gate, combined with the self-closing, self-latching gate, it's just a safer system than only having, the one. So I think you're 100% correct.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just one piece of the puzzle. Right. And that, as a parent 25 years ago, if you would have told me that, I'd probably be thinking just like the guy that's running that pool today, because he thinks that he can put a 16, 17-year-old kid on the gate. He's a trained lifeguard, and probably a very professional trained lifeguard. But again, if he's clicking that little clicker, counting how many people, because they can only have so many people in the facility. So he's keeping track of what he's doing. I mean, he's multitasking on many different levels. And how simple would it be for a child to slip by him, or thinking that, well, that child's with mom and dad. Mom and dad are going to keep, but then mom and dad get distracted, and then where does that kid go? That kid wants to immediately go to where the water's at and the toys and the pool, because that's where everybody's playing and having fun. And it gets right past them by the gate. And so from that standpoint, I just people's philosophy, sometimes it takes me back to that. That's why I say the reason why I'm wanting to get re-engaged here and get re-involved is because over 25 years, I haven't seen as much movement as what maybe I would have expected. But again, there's improvements. And I think everything's moving in the right direction. The education, what a lot of these organizations do. I was invited here to go down to Kernersville, North Carolina for their Water Safety Day, and with Darlene Haskins, and William, her husband, is one of your dealers. And and they're in the Greensboro, North Carolina area. So, very, very passionate family. They don't have a personal experience with that, but they're very passionate about, making sure that nobody has to go through what I went through, or, thousands and thousands and thousands of other people do. And then, Paul DeMello, I met Paul DeMello at the NDPA conference, great guy, what he's doing, tragic story, magnified, so much more than what my situation is. And, I've met so many others, and I don't, and if I don't mention somebody, I apologize, because, I've fostered a lot of new friendships, very tragic stories. And I've learned a lot that, just in my short few months here of being re-engaged with a lot of these people and with the direction I want to go. And so the Kels Group basically is named after my daughter, Kelsey. That was her older sister always called her Kels. And, part of that Kels Group is building a platform, to be able to give a voice to those who no longer have a voice, because I believe that's the messaging, because trying to reach those people who thought like I did 25 years ago, how do you communicate to them? That's what I'm really trying to figure out, because I'm really trying to communicate to myself. And when people don't want to listen, that becomes a problem. And, I've actually had people tell me that it's a parenting problem, and it's like, what? It's a parent? Well, yeah, because, they're not watching their children. It's easy to pass blame on, and say it's a parenting problem, but until you actually, until it happens to you. And then I just look at him and say, so you're telling me I was a bad parent 25 years ago? No, that's not what I'm saying. And I'm like, well, yes, you are. And and trying to just change people's mindsets to understand, because I look at it as like an iceberg. Okay. And everybody knows that, what is it, 10 or 20% of, the iceberg is above water. Everything else is below the water. And I look at it and say, we're reaching the 10% or whatever that's above the water. But if 50% of the people aren't concerned and don't care, those people are below the water line and they will always stay there. So they're already drowning. They're just drowning, waiting for an accident like this to happen, whether or not it's a drowning. And I know, like yesterday, you and I talked about, children in hot cars. I mean, and then, you look at all the different ways that parents make simple, small little mistakes or forget, or because they've got so many things going on in their life that they just walk out of the car or walk away from a pool or answer a cell phone or answer a text message. And next thing you know, it's that quick. And I talk a lot about the seatbelts. We all put seatbelts on our car. Why do we do that? I know you remember a time that we didn't have to wear seatbelts, right? And then I know when the law came out, I went for years and didn't do it. I didn't want to be told that I had to wear a seatbelt. But now I put the seatbelt on as second nature. And so the law, so did I put the seatbelt on because I didn't want a ticket, or did I put it on because, I wanted to, maybe survive till tomorrow? And one of the reasons why I put it on is because I started having grandchildren, and my children, grew up with this law that, they understood this. So they told me, hey, Dad, or hey, Grandpa, you need to put your seatbelt on. Well, now I do it and I don't even think about it. So those laws have really changed my behavior. Same thing with car seats. And then, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, with 3 strikes, you're out, a designated driver, just like the designated driver is for like our water watcher, a designated person to watch the water. I mean, so the messaging, I think, is there. And it's like, but, how do you communicate to those 50%? Because those are people that we'll never reach until it's too late. And then, they come in and become part of our group or our organization or our club that nobody really wanted to be part of. And so
with the seatbelts, I say that all the time now. I've been saying for the last couple of years, if you wouldn't own if you wouldn't own a car without seatbelts, then don't own a pool without a pool fence or without layers of protection.
Right.
I think that idea has resonated with people. And to your point about the messaging, about Mothers Against Drunk Driving and about, click it or ticket, or all of these other kind of PSA messages. And we've had a few that have gotten some penetration, right? We have Pool Safely does simple steps save lives, and Pool Safely is a verb, which I like. We have the Safer 3. Safer pool, safer water, safer kid, which I like. There's layers of protection, which we all know. There's a handful of them out there, but there's not, to your credit, there's not one that's really taken a national kind of syndication or national saturation yet, where it's really caught on. And I don't know if that's a marketing issue. I don't know if that's a phrase issue. I don't know if that's a cultural issue, but we don't have something like stop, drop, and roll for fire safety
right.
when it comes to drowning.
Right. And so, I've been in business for over 30 years, and you're a business person, and usually, typically for business people, entrepreneurs or whatever, our main focus here is to find a problem and solve the problem. And then and provide the tools. And so I look at drowning, water safety and drowning as a very broad area, because it covers so much to do with water. It goes all, everything from infants to in-home, bathtubs to, cruise lines, the fishing industry, the oil industry, that have oil rigs, everything that you have, they all have water safety, drowning prevention, all the way to, USA Swimming and everything. And so from that standpoint, I look at that and I say, so I really look at it and try to break the problem down and take it down to even, what is the problem here? And the problem, I believe, and I'm thinking like myself, I'm not a highly educated person. So I'm just trying to put myself in that frame of mind where I was 25 years ago. And then how would I communicate to myself 25 years ago? And if I can figure that piece of the puzzle out and begin to look at that, and then I can break that, and then I can begin to target those 50% of the people that really don't concern themselves. I mean, when I go out and I talk to families and talk to people, I find that they say, oh, yeah, I'm terrified of drowning, but then they don't do anything about it. And then they say, well, I just don't believe, it doesn't happen that much. And then I'd say, well, let me enlighten you. And so, trying to find that messaging to tell people that, hey, it can happen to you just as easy as it did with me. And then, and with Bodie Miller, as the facts are coming out about that, just, they were in the house talking, and she just slipped through a doorway and and got outside and around a pool. So, so these people with that public pool here in Ohio that doesn't want to put self-closing, they should look at that story and say, okay, here she got through a doorway and into a pool area. And look at all these other stories that go along with that. And then usually I find.
Is that what happened? The last I heard, and I had heard this the day of the drowning, so there may have been more information. But I had read originally that it was a pool party. So are they now deciding the kid was inside the house?
Well, there may be a pool party going on, but they went to a neighbor's house. This is what I got because I set up Google Alerts so I can get any updates that are coming out about this. I can begin to learn, be able to share this as
Yeah, just to back up, for anybody who doesn't know, which I think everybody in the water safety community knows, but outside of our group, Bodie Miller is a gold medalist in the down alpine skiing Winter Olympics, and he was also a commentator for the 2018 Olympics. And him and his wife had a 19-month-old daughter, and 2 days ago, she tragically drowned in a backyard swimming pool, and so that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think originally they said she was pool party. There was a pool party. There may have been some type of gathering, but evidently, they went into the neighbor's home inside the house to speak with them, and then while they were talking, their daughter somehow got out the door. So if there was a gathering of people, such as a pool party, I'm imagining that probably people going in and out of the door all the time, and she probably just walked right out the door unbeknownst to them, which, can happen. We were talking about car seats, other things, and so just kind of a little bit of a story here about my youngest son, who's now a freshman in college. But, when he was about 2-3 years old, maybe, I was cooking hamburgers in the kitchen, and walkers. We used to be able to get walkers that had wheels on them. You can't buy them unless you find them in a garage sale, but you can't go to the store and buy them. So I had a walker, had wheels on it, and he's in the kitchen just doing his little bumper car thing that he did, and I'm at the stove cooking hamburgers, and next thing I know, I hear this boom, 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 boom. Well, he got too close to the basement stairway and fell down the stairs. And just that quick, where 10 seconds before he's behind me while I'm cooking hamburgers, and within seconds he was laying on the floor of the basement. Wasn't seriously injured or anything, because I don't know how many stairs, 15, 20, 25 stairs he went down. So he probably did who knows how many flips and somersaults, and came out of the walker and was laying flat on his back. And so from that standpoint, that right there can show just how fast a child can. If a child is mobile, they can move. How fast they can go from point A to point B. And if I had and we had at the time we didn't have a pool. Because following our daughter's accident, I actually hired a contractor to come in, and he bulldozed and dug the pool up, but we buried it because nobody else wanted to swim in it. Nobody else wanted to use it. So for several years went by, and it just kind of, just was an eyesore. And so we just decided to get rid of it. And so, but if I still had my pool, he could have easily went in his walker and went the other way. And then went out that door, and instead of going down the stairs, fall in a pool. And then most likely I probably would have looked every place before ever checking the pool, because, just like most parents, my child won't do that. And, we want to believe our children won't crawl through a doggy door and have access to a pool. But, I know if I was a little kid and there was a doggy door, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going through it, because that looks pretty cool to be able to go through a doggy.
I go out doggy doors all the time. A lot of kids go out doggy doors. It happens all the time.
Right. And so with
Paul DeMello, real quick. Paul DeMello says, "My man Rich, my new friend, bond forever." Eric, ask him the tough questions and how and what ways we're not getting it done and missing the mark with water safety. So yeah, I guess to Paul's point, in what ways are we missing the mark? How are we not getting it done?
I believe we are getting it done. I guess the point of this is it's a personal thing with me. It's we need to do it faster, more quickly. But how to do that? I think with the internet today, with the access to the internet, gives us the availability to reach everybody. Okay, whereas before the internet, we didn't have that ability. We could not. I mean, we'd have to go direct mail, door to door, beat on doors, and it would have took millions and millions of people. But today with the internet, you can sit here as one individual person, put together campaigns, put together some type of program, or as a collective group of people, all the organizations together, be able to put a messaging and be able to laser target people via the internet that have swimming pools. You and I were talking about the Facebook advertising. I mean, you can go right into Facebook and target people that have interest in swimming pools. They have interest in safety. They have interest in swimming, that are children, that are new mothers, that are new fathers, that are families with children who have swimming pools. And so we can get very laser targeted messaging, and from the standpoint of a marketing, and my background is in, business and marketing, it's an average of 7 to 8 touch points. Somebody has to see your message before they take action. So, if we just focus on setting our booth up at the county fair, we're seeing the same people all the time. And then we trusting on word of mouth. Well, everybody knows that if I do something really bad, they're going to go tell 10 people. But if I'm doing something good, a lot of times they don't, they agree with you and say, hey, great job, but they don't go tell anybody. But if I turn around and I do something and I offend somebody, or if I do something that might upset them, they're going to go tell 10 people. And so from this standpoint, I just think that if we're going to say we're missing the mark, which I don't think we really are, but it's just like if we want to accomplish more, I don't know if this is proper English, but if we want to accomplish more and more faster or quicker, then I think that's where we might be missing that, looking at the bigger picture of what the internet can offer with like what you're doing here. I mean, because this goes out into the internet and it's there. And anytime, and it becomes a searchable asset that is an asset of lifesaver pool fence, but is also an asset for drowning, water safety that goes out there that, 2 years from now, if somebody like me decides to start searching something on the internet, guess what? I find this video that might give me that I can glean one golden nugget from that can maybe change my direction, change my life, protect somebody, for me to make a difference in my life. But if I don't do those things, and I don't, in other words, look at this space and say, dominate this space. I know I one of your Facebook posts not too long ago, you finished the book, Crush It, I think you said, right? With Gary Vee. I listen to him all the time, and I really, he's all about domination, and, Grant Cardone and his book 10X, and, about dominating the space that you're in. And I really think if that's the case, just like Click It or Ticket, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they dominated the space. They got their messaging out, and they got it to millions and millions of people. And that's kind of our messaging, what I'm looking at, say, with the Kels Group, and then AKA the Drowning Warriors, because my shirt here, I don't know if you can see it, but it says I'm a drowning warrior. That's my superpower. Can you see it here?
I saw the top of it. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I look at, what's that?
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it says I'm a drowning warrior. That's my superpower. And really my superpower is this, I can wear this shirt and it has the word drowning. And if I wear this out, and it's amazing, when we wear this shirt out, the attention it gets, people look at us kind of funny sometimes, like, what? But if I wear this out to a pool, just the word drowning, I think, brings awareness and will make people concerned. So if I wear this to a beach, or I wear this to a pool, people are going to see that and they think drowning. Oh yeah, wow, I'm around water, drowning. It can happen. And so, part of it as being what I'm saying here is we fight for people who no longer have a voice, but at the same time, it's a fight every day. And so it's about messaging, about building a movement and creating a movement and focused on reaching the masses and reaching a lot of people and building a platform. And because one of my goals over the next decade in 10 years is to reduce drowning by 50%, which means that we, going from roughly 3,700 down to below 1,500 in the United States, and not only just in the United States, but worldwide. And which I think in the 10 years to reduce drowning in the United States by 50% is very, very possible. I mean, I think it is possible and without probably as much effort or work as what we might think. But the other part of that is I think from a worldwide standpoint might be much more difficult because we're dealing with third world countries. We're dealing with people that, there's the infrastructure, the education, the things, the tools, and the people just aren't available. So for us to make that big of an impact from a worldwide standpoint might be tougher. But from the United States, I think it is totally doable to reduce and set a goal to reduce those numbers by 50%. Once we hit those numbers, let's go after the next set. Because as long as there's water on this earth, we're never going to really end drowning, but we can end, in other words, we can end drowning as we know it, which is the drownings that are preventable. Okay, such as the backyard pools, where there's, public, we can bring awareness to it and we can do that. I mean, accidents are still going to happen, one way or another, whether or not somebody drives a car. I know you're down in Florida, and I know one of the biggest problems is, people, you got all those, I don't know what you call those canals or what do you call those in Florida, but I guess people drive off into those and they drown in their car and kids drown. So you got a lot of other issues there in Florida that we don't have here in Ohio. And I think in Ohio we have, so I think your state, Florida, and other states like Florida probably have a much more heightened awareness of drowning than people here in Ohio do, because our swimming season is very short, 3-4 months.
Even though drowning has long been the number one cause of death for kids under 5 or for 1 to 4 in Florida, I still don't think people fully appreciate, the level of threat that it is. I just don't think they quite realize. I think there's a chicken or the egg thing going on. Because it's so common, it doesn't make the news because it's not unusual enough to be newsworthy, right? It's not like a tornado or something out of the ordinary. And at the same time, because it doesn't make the news, people don't know about it, right? So it's kind of a weird conundrum. And I just wanted to say, Stephanie Marie Robertson, who is fantastic, writes, the biggest help with getting drowning out there is having pediatricians talk about it. I am thankful that my children's pediatrician works with me and tells every new parent and movable child the risks of drowning and gives my information out. She started a foundation called Nathan's Water Wings after her son Nathan, passed away. And I think she's right. I think pediatricians getting the word out is definitely a key component in, educating people, at least in the U.S., like you said.
Right. Oh yeah, I totally agree with what she's saying there. I mean, to have professionals who see our children all the time, and having them have access to this information to be able to give to the people when they come in is a real key. Again, it's about the messaging, not just the internet, but flooding every avenue that we can do with the messaging and getting the people, because that I think is where we're going to make the biggest impact, and we're getting there and we're doing things. But I guess, going back to what I was saying is, when I look at it 25 years ago to now, I guess I expected more, and maybe we have a lot more, because for about 15 years I just spoke in my local community, did some things, but I really wasn't an advocate, I guess you would say, for about 15 years, because I didn't know where my place was. I didn't know what to do. And then there was also a fear component, because I felt like, people are going to say, why now? Why 25 years later? Why didn't you do this 25 years ago? Part of it is I feel there's I look at the accidents that happen today that in some cases are very similar to my accident. If I would have done things 25 years ago and would be doing what I'm doing now, would those accidents have happened? So I feel guilty. Last weekend, I went down to Dayton to an event for Jessica Knight. I don't know. I actually heard about this accident through Paul DeMello. He shared a video. They're from Ohio and they went to Florida on a family vacation. And I believe it was last summer, and her son drowned. And she found him. She performed CPR. He survived, but he's now going through hyperbariatric, oxygen therapy, and a very, very tragic story. I went down to Dayton and met her. She's all by herself really doing this whole thing. And, and I told her, I says, you wouldn't believe how many people are aware of your story. And when I told her about Paul in Florida sharing a video from a year ago, she started to cry. She had tears, and it hit me. And she asked me a question that I hadn't been asked for in a long, long time as I shared my story. And she says, how did you survive that first year? And I just told her that I was numb, which I don't think I think most parents would probably agree and say, yeah, you go through that, was numb. But I've really reflected back over 25 years, and the answer was my faith. I survived it because of my faith, even though I don't remember how I got through day to day. But I believe that I would be with my daughter again, and that's what I believe. And so but at the same time, now it's time to take, these things and put them to action. So why now, 25 years later? Well, I believe God was refining me for 25 years, if you want to say. I reinvented myself so many times. From a business owner, I was in an investment bank with Chase Bank, to driving semi-trucks, traveling the world, meeting people, to, doing the other things I've done in business and owning an antique store, learning internet, learning everything from, internet marketing to everything I've done over the last 25 years, I believe has done nothing but prepare me for this spot that I'm at today. And so that's why if somebody says to me, why 25 years later? That's what I would say. But, her son Leland is going through, a tough time. And that breaks my heart because that's why I don't do this for myself, and I don't do it for my daughter. I do it because I see her pain, and her pain reminds me of my pain. And I don't want anybody else to go through that pain. And because it was real simple, because as she told me and shared with me, if she would have known some of these things years ago, or before that, she would have made different decisions that day, or whether or not she even would have went on. She said she was more concerned about going to Florida and her son being eaten by an alligator. Because of the media attention that, got that one accident there a few years ago. And so, so she was more concerned about that than she was about her son being in a pool. And she was with other family members. And it was, similar situation where just lost track of them for that split second. And not knowing to look in a pool or a body of water first before you look other places.
Yeah. Paul writes, one of his best friends lost his daughter out of a doggy door leading to a backyard swimming pool, which will happen shortly after my twin drowning. Way too many kids are still drowning. It's the world epidemic. It's not being treated as such for selfish reasons. We have to do better and can do better. We need social media, TV, billboards, PSCs everywhere. And it needs to be all year round, not just summertime, and continue to take a look at what ages, where and why this is happening. More and more all over, laws need to change. And education in the schools and daycares, this is ongoing. And this is an ongoing effort from everyone with a redundant message that needs to never not be talked about. I agree with that completely.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, and I think what he's doing down there in Florida and with his organization is just awesome. And I was hoping to win his motorcycle he was giving away. But
I bought 25 tickets for that. I was really hoping to get that thing.
You bought how many? 2,500 or 25?
I bought 20 tickets that came out to like $500. Yeah.
Oh, 20. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's like, oh boy. I mean, but with what he's doing, I mean, I mean, he's got a strong message, and not just Paul, but everybody does, just like, Stephanie and all the others that watch your show here, and then that are also out there that are busy working every single day, 12 months out of the year, 365 days a year. They live, they breathe, they eat, drowning prevention, water safety, because they understand the importance. Unfortunately, part of what I talk about is reaching out over the last several years to many people and getting crickets. And, and it is, and it might be in some cases where these people have stuff on the internet and they're no longer involved. They no longer do anything because people start foundations just like we did 25 years ago. And they stop, they give it up because, they can't go on with the work anymore. And there's nobody really to carry on their mission. So they stop doing what they're doing. And so in that case, it might be the case. And I've met through my business and everything, I've met other people that have been referred to me because, one person comes to mind as I work with the MDA out of Cincinnati, Muscular Dystrophy Association, with a large project here in the state of Ohio and things that they're doing. But, they referred me to the Spina Bifida, organization in Cincinnati. And because of my drowning story, because she's a grandmother of a grandchild that drowned in a backyard pool at a family barbecue. And her story is the family doesn't communicate. They don't talk. They can't. It's happened several years ago. They cannot and will not go out and become an advocate and speak about this because, I guess, feelings are still very raw, very, very difficult. And they're still pointing fingers and playing the blame game. But how many people are like that? When I look at the NDPA, the numbers, and I look at how many organizations are out there, and then, how many I don't know about, but, I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds of organizations, and I'm only aware of a small fraction, 30, 40 maybe, that I'm aware of. And so, and they all, it's like, how can we find them all? How can we get people that, even if they don't want to get out there and tell their story, but to become, I guess, a silent partner, if you will, of the movement, and then share somebody else's story if they can't share their own.
So Paul asked what actually I was going to ask. How do we get the shirts? The shirt is cool. I want one. And Paul wants one.
Basically, we can get you a shirt. That's not a problem. We can get everybody a shirt. One of the things is with our website and with our organization, we are building out a membership site. Okay, so part of this is we're going to be giving these shirts away for free through our membership, through other programs. But obviously, if people want a shirt, we can definitely put up a link where they can go and order a shirt. Again, I think it comes in all the way up to 5X and or 4 or 5X, which is pretty good size. And then, then with our membership site, we want to do, I talked with you yesterday about that. We want to begin to do educational webinars, putting some basic information together, kind of like what you're doing, the podcast. This is very similar, but either putting out the education and then giving that information. So again, trying to reach those people that are like I was 25 years ago, and maybe just giving them little snippets of information and then giving them some place where they can go find this, and then begin to build partnerships with businesses like Life Saver Pool Fence. The technology piece, because 25 years ago, the technology exists today that could have prevented my daughter's drowning. It wasn't around 25 years ago, and the technology is advancing so fast that, after the NDPA conference, I received an email from a guy who has patented a new design, but doesn't know how to launch it for the cruise ship industry. And he's got a design that is a handheld item that lifeguards can, basically what it is that it's a net system that shoots out of an air cannon, that if somebody falls off a cruise ship, it shoots out an air cannon, because a cruise ship takes how long to turn around. And by the time they get turned around to pick somebody up, even if they do turn around, they can't find the person, because it's like finding a needle in a haystack in open water like that, right? So he's developed this cannon that would shoot off the back end of a ship that covers like 1,000 square feet, and it's like a floatable netting. It holds hundreds. So in other words, if a ship even sinks, you can get hundreds of people on that. But he's developed a handheld system that he's in the process of getting patent right now that a lifeguard can do. And in that way, if a child or people are stuck in a rip current, he can fire that thing out from the beach side by the water side to reach those people and then get in a net, and then they can pull that in. Great. I mean, so here's a guy that is developing technology or developing system that, is trying to bring this to market. But, we need more people like that. But how many people out there are developing technology that are engineers that have the ability to do these things that can really affect and make a difference? So that's kind of a direction that we want to go and begin to partner with businesses and help these people, do this. And part of this is with the T-shirts is just the awareness, just like a water watcher tag. But the T-shirt is just making it aware that drowning happens, and I'm a warrior for drowning. Anybody can. We're all warriors. So I don't own the name or anything like that, but it's just a heightened awareness, and then saying that's my superpower, and then we have plans of bringing in an actual character, a superhero character that we want to do, and then actually my grandson I shared with you yesterday, every superhero character has to have a sidekick, so he came up with this idea over the last weekend and says, well, Grandpa, he says your superhero, which will be the superhero's name will be Drowning Warrior, needs a sidekick, and he says call him Vest Boy. So he'll be a childlike character that will wear like a Coast Guard approved vest, in a character type thing, and then developing a line of education where the Drowning Warrior is there for the parents and for other things and for children, but then Vest Boy will really target towards or that character, whether or not that'll be his name or not. But that's the direction that we're going. So that might be kind of our educational piece.
I like the name Vest Boy a lot, actually. I think that's really good.
Yeah. And my 10-year-old grandson comes up with this idea. And then, of course, he says then he has to have his own sidekick because he has an annoying sister. He says, and then a character that's, here comes the Drowning Warrior with his sidekick Vest Boy and his annoying sister, Water Wing Girls, what he said. But I said, well, you'll start spending a lot of money because these characters are like $5,000-$6,000 to have made, so they're not really cheap. but we're paying for a lot of these things out of our own pocket, and so it's kind of like trying to move things. So that's kind of where the T-shirt deal and the membership part is. That way, it makes our message and allows me to do what I'm doing, on a full-time basis, but be able to get out there and reach more people and get the messaging. So yeah, I can definitely supply you with a link in order to get a T-shirt if that's what you want to do. And then we are getting ready to here, hopefully in the next few weeks, to really get our membership portion kind of launched and get that going and begin to give a lot of value. And not only that, start working and putting together things from a co-branding, situation where through membership and driving that, and then getting physical items, physical things to reminders that with a messaging and getting people, even if it's a pop socket or, something like a pen, that people can leave at a counter, a desk, everything that's some type of co-branding stuff and giving this stuff away through the membership. And then building a platform that, hope maybe we can have tens of thousands of, readers to our blog and email list that when we co-brand something, we can get your message, we can get, all the other organization messages, in front of so many more people and begin to use the power of the internet and also reach doctors and be able to target pediatricians and maybe in rural areas that maybe don't have the access to, a YMCA and other educational information, especially if they're not attending conferences, that might, deal with these, because if they don't go to an educational conference that deals and gets it and they don't themselves get educated about drowning, then they're not going to educate their patients and their people about drowning. So we have to educate them first, so then they can begin to educate others.
Absolutely. 100%. The legendary national hero known as Bob Pratt writes, water safety is a national effort in every other country. RNLI, Canadian Life Saving Society, SLSA, all of our foundations, alliances, and projects struggle for funding, just like you're talking about. Why is there no national water safety agency funded by the federal government? That's an excellent question, and I don't have an answer for that. There isn't a Department of Water Safety, right? And he's right. There's a Canadian Life Saving Society. Australia has theirs, but the U.S. for some reason doesn't seem to have a nationally funded drowning prevention organization. And
Right,
I'm not sure why
and if you go on Google and you search the term, the keywords water safety, you get everything about drinking water.
Right.
You see you don't see anything about, maybe buried pages down, but on the first page of Google, it's all about, Flint, Michigan, drinking water, this for drinking water, whatever. And, our bottled water, tap water, and not about pool safety. And I totally agree. Again, I think that's part of the messaging part and getting that messaging, but begin to change the laws and change things, pulling some of these products off the shelves, because, you can get on TV today and see a national company, advertising their product and showing a kid things on his arm, jumping into a pool today. That's 25 years later after I put those on my daughter. They're still out there. So if we're out there educating people about not to wear these, and then they're getting messaging, even though that might be kind of a subliminal, because the messaging might be about buying, tickets to a water park, but they're showing, kid jumping in the pool with mom and dad, with blow up floaties on their arms, then, that's kind of a conflict in our messaging because people regard these people as, experts. They regard these people as upstanding businesses within the community. And then we come in and say, you shouldn't wear it. So they're really getting this kind of conflicting messaging from the media. And so I believe that, that's got to be a push to get to these companies and say, hey, pull that advertising off. Do you realize what you're doing is counterintuitive to what our messaging is? And so let's all get on the same page, with these businesses and companies that have the multi-million-dollar budgets to put out the advertising. Let's get them advertising in a responsible way. And then we can turn around. And then I think then our messaging, when we start telling people, because they'll stop seeing these things. And then if we can get the laws changed to where we can basically have a lot of these products maybe outlawed and pulled off the shelf, but, to get the government and Congress and everything behind that, when you got the Walmarts of the world and all the big companies that just put millions and billions of lobbyists fight against actions, then, which is going to take millions and millions of people and a lot of money in which to do it. And, but, Mothers Against Drunk Driving did it. And all the other organizations that have changed laws have done it. And so from that standpoint, we've got the people, and we just, maybe with like Bob's saying, have a national, water safety organization that, and that is government. I know we got poolsafely.gov and we've got the NDPA and you got USA Swimming, you got all these other organizations, but which are all doing great work and they need to continue doing their work. But again, having kind of a, like a at the top, and saying, okay, let's bring all this together. And but I guess the biggest question is who's going to lead that? Maybe Bob can. Here we go.
You are.
Oh, me?
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah, that's usually what happens because when I was at the NDPA conference in April, Pam Cannell out of Fort Worth, Texas, you know her, right, and everything.
Yeah.
And I spoke a lot with her. We went out to dinner and lunch and everything. Next thing I know, now I'm working with Adam on a project for New Orleans next year, and she wants me involved also in the 2020 conference in Fort Worth. So. Yeah, I guess if you speak up too much, next thing you know, it's just like any organization, you're going to be volunteering and say, well, now you've got a project to work on. So
right.
I guess watch what you say, right? Sometimes otherwise you'll find biting off more than what you can chew. But no, that's what I'm here for. I'm here. I look at people, I say, use me and abuse me. That's what I want to do.
100%. Stephanie Robertson writes, I feel our insurance companies should pay for swimming lessons. I know I'm dreaming and that will never happen, but it's just as important, if not more important, than going to a dentist or doctor for vaccines. I've thought insurance companies should give rebates or lower insurance rates for people who install a pool fence or install other pool safety layers of protection. Well, I've been saying that for a long time, and I think some do, but I don't think it's across the board. I don't think that all insurance companies, at least they don't advertise it, that you can get a lower insurance rate if you install a pool fence, which makes sense to me. I mean, you do it if you get a security at your house, if you put up cameras, if you're a safe driver. It seems like if you make your pool safer, that would be in their best interest.
Right. Well, yeah, just like if you go buy an Audi car, that's or one of those cars that's much built around safety versus buying another car that's much less expensive, but may not have all the safety features.
Sure.
Insurance companies, but you pay a lot more money for the product, but in turn you save some money on the insurance, and so the insurance industry already does that. But that was a point. What you're saying, I kind of assumed they did that. I guess that's one little tidbit of information I wasn't aware of, because I know when I had my pool, all my insurance agent told me carry $1 million umbrella is what he told me, and bare minimum, because in case a kid climbs your fence and drowns, you're going to get sued. And that's what he told me. But other than that, so we put up a fence based on what the bare minimums were, based on what we could afford, and that's what we did. And but I think, Stephanie, as far as finding swimming lessons and having a national organization that maybe somehow can fund some type of programs that might do swim lessons and get everybody on the same page. Because if I wanted to attend ISR or have my child, I think the closest instructor is in Dayton, which is like 35, 40 miles from me.
Oh, wow.
And so then the other part of that is the adult swimming. USA Swimming has that scholarship that I think pays for, instructors to become adult swimmers. My wife today, she'll probably hate me for saying this, but she doesn't know how to swim. And, she doggy paddles, but, I told her, I says, she needs to learn to swim, but she has a fear of water. She gets on any boat or ship, she's always got her life jacket on. I mean, she just has a natural fear of water. And my understanding of when it comes to adults versus children are, have a natural, I guess,
curiosity.
Yeah. They don't. In other words, children just naturally are not afraid of water in most cases, I guess. And whereas adults, at some point in time, they build up a fear, and then so it's a whole different type of instructor. So that's a whole nother different element. And I guess the closest adult instructor that teaches these teaches these adult type swim lessons, the closest one I think is in Indiana, like maybe 60, 70, 80 miles away. And so in order to, I guess, adults can go to our local Y and take lessons, but most of those instructors are really trained to teach children, not adults, because I guess it could take an adult couple, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks or longer, maybe, just to get from sitting on the edge of the pool to get in the pool. And so it's a whole different element. And I think that's because as parents, we need to lead by example. So if we want to be safe with safety, we need to lead an example. So if we expect our children, we expect other people to do things, and we need to lead by example and show them the example of what we need to be. And then I think people will begin to follow that too.
For sure. So, to wrap this up, tell me, kind of how people can find you, how people can help you. And then after that, I want to ask you, what recommendations you have for parents.
Well, first of all, you can go to the kelsgroup.com. Okay. You can reach me there. We also have, my Facebook page, which is under the Kels Group. So you can go to Kels Group on, or Facebook / the Kels Group. Also on Facebook under my name, Richard Kauffman, personally, if you want to find me there. We're on Instagram under Richard Kauffman. Another section of my sister business, which is Kels Marketing. And then also we're on Twitter under Kels Marketing, and with a focus on water safety under Kels Group. And so you can email me at, rick@thekelsgroup.com is my business website, or business email address. And on my website's got my cell phone numbers and other things that they can reach out. I'm available to anybody that wants to chat, talk, whatever. Just from the standpoint, my background's in business. So, getting, helping people to begin to run their nonprofit organizations. I strictly only work with nonprofits. So showing them how to begin to run their nonprofits from a business person standpoint and think like a business person, and even though they're a nonprofit, but and working them. I'll give a little tidbit of information that people can take. If that we do a lot and we talk a lot and we get some success with, and I'll use this. I'll just frame the example this way. Let's say I have a foundation here locally, and we'll just call it Jill's Foundation. She has an event coming up. It might be a small event. Let's say she needs 100 T-shirts, just like something like I'm wearing here, and she wants her message put on a T-shirt. We actually go. She gives us some referrals. We actually get on the phone. We call, and then we make the contact with the business owner, and we begin to build a partnership between the nonprofit and the business owner. And what we do is we find a business owner that will underwrite what this nonprofit is doing, so that way the nonprofit has an event where they can have little to no expense at all. And then we go and put that together. So let's say Jill's Foundation wants 100 T-shirts. I go to Mom and Pop Pizza. Okay. When, my background in business, when I would have a nonprofit come in, I would either just write the check or I would donate goods and services, never knowing or understanding what my ROI is going to be on that, but because I get to pat myself on the back and I feel good because businesses want to partner with nonprofits but this is all about driving traffic because the nonprofit knows people that the business doesn't. We can allow the business to get in front of a new potential clientele. So if I go down here to say Mom and Pop's Pizza Shop and I approach them and I can show them how, Jill's Foundation needs 100 T-shirts. So let's co-brand that 100 T-shirt where it says, Jill's Foundation doing ABC partners with, Mom and Pop's Pizza Shop. Wear this T-shirt in and receive 10% off of every pizza. Then, people buy pizzas every single week, right? Most do. I know we do a lot of times. And so I can wear that T-shirt. So that gives them the reason not only to wear the T-shirt, but wear the T-shirt and we can drive traffic. It becomes measurable to the business because the business is going to see the return. And if they had a 20% return rate on 100 T-shirts, which cost the business $1,000, and then they get a return of, let's say the average pizza, they spend $20, so they give a 10% off because somebody wears a T-shirt. It's kind of like wearing your coupon on your back, right? And so I wear that shirt in, and then they give up $2, so they sell pizza for $18. And let's say the life of the T-shirt lasts for 10 weeks, and they have 20%, just 20 people. They drive over $3,600 worth of business over a 10-week period that they paid $1,000 for. And so from that standpoint, Jill's Foundation now has 100 T-shirts, which she didn't have to pay for. Let's say the cost of the shirts were $10 if they really had lots of, different type of artworks and colors and everything. So, if she saved $1,000, if she chooses to sell those shirts at $5 a piece, she not only makes an extra $5, but, or whatever she wants to sell the shirts for, or just give the shirts away. But that's an expense that she doesn't have. So there's a little nugget for everybody because everybody wants to do T-shirts, right? So here's a way you can do your T-shirts for your next event and have somebody else pay for them. Just show the benefit to the business. So because the business says, if I can show the business how he can profit, then the likelihood I can justify the expense. And then once he measures that and he sees the results from a campaign like that, I can go back to him over and over and over again and get more money, more product. And you don't even need to be a nonprofit to do this because the business can code that as advertising, which now becomes tax deductible for the business. So you don't necessarily have to be a 501c3 to be able to say that way they can give $1,000 for a taxable donation. The $1,000 for the T-shirts goes to advertising. And so that's a way to get around that. If you are struggling as a person who wants to start a nonprofit, but people are saying, hey, if you're not a charity, I can't support you. Well, here's a way that maybe you can go to a mom and pop business, because mom and pop businesses want to do what the big corporations do, but they don't have the budgets, but you can show them how it can do it. So anyways, that's my 2 cents there. And I'm sorry. And I totally forgot your other question.
My question was, if you had to leave a piece of advice with parents, to keep their pool and their children safer, what would it be?
Oh boy, I tell you, that's an awesome question because there's probably a million different answers possibly to that question. Thinking with what my messaging, what I talk about is when I talk, I would say for the average parent out there, the average person who's like me, that whether or not they have a pool or they don't have a pool, because I think a lot of the people that don't concern themselves with drowning probably don't have pools. but to understand that drowning, to understand that it can happen to you. Okay. Because most people don't believe, like myself, I didn't believe it would happen to me. Most of the stories say it's, I never thought it would happen. Bodie Miller even said, I never would have dreamt that this would have happened. So just understanding of that, but they know, but they're afraid of, they put their child in a car seat because they're afraid of, they want to give that child every opportunity to survive a car accident. If the jerk coming down the road is texting, goes left to center, and hits me head on. And so, that those are circumstances that are out of my control, and understand that the only person's actions I can control are my own. I cannot control the actions of my child, regardless of their age. I can't control the actions of the other people that I expect that might be watching my child. And knowing that, the only actions I can control is what I do, and understand that it can happen to me. And that would be my message to, probably say, to parents. And that's a tough one to get across to a lot of people.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for this, Rick. I've really enjoyed this. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been wonderful. And again, especially given that it's the 25th anniversary, of Kelsey passing away, it means a lot, truly, that you decided to come today and talk to me. So.
Well, I appreciate you having me this day, and I've got a lot of things to do this day, and other places to go, and but at the same time, I really, really appreciate your time and everything, and then everybody in the drowning space. I truly appreciate every single thing that everybody does from the bottom of my heart, and in just keep doing what we're doing, and we will get to where we want to be. Whether or not and just hopefully we can get there a little faster. I guess that's what I'm after. And because every day that goes by is just another chance for to reach another person that maybe wouldn't hear about this. And so I appreciate everything you do, Eric. And I will definitely, anybody I talk to, they're going to know about what you guys do with Lifesaver Pool Fence. And so I will, because I stand behind what you guys do and the layers of protection and your education, 120%. And so I'm there with you, man.
All right. Well, everybody go check out the Kels Group, Drowning Warriors. Richard Kauffman, he's doing great work. So thanks, Rich, and we will see you guys soon. Have a great day.